Hello, welcome everyone. How are you? Welcome, Maud. Welcome to Equipo en Vuelo. It's an honor to receive you and to having you teach for our community. I can't see you. You are as a co-host. You should probably have the option of opening your camera and your mic. I will give some instructions in Spanish and Portuguese. Bienvenidos todos, gracias por sumarse a este webinario gratuito que estamos ofreciendo sobre Dyspraxia. Para acceder a la traducción, porque Maud va a estar hablando en inglés, pueden acceder al menú inferior, van a ver que tienen la opción de interpretação, donde van a poder seleccionar el idioma en español. Ok? Então, para o pessoal do Brasil que está aqui com a gente, bem-vindos. Vocês vão achar aí no menu inferior a opção de interpretação de idiomas, de línguas. Aí vocês podem escolher a opção de ouvir o webinário em português, tá? Maud, I still can see you. Maud, but welcome. You have still some people joining. I don't want to steal your time. We have just 1 hour to take advantage and listen to Maud and learn from her. So let's take advantage of it. We will have no chat. We will have no mic. Okay? It will be just listening and learning. Okay? I still can't find Maud. Maud, are you there?
Yes, she's there. She's
Okay. Maud, you can open your mic. Welcome. And it's all yours. A pleasure to have you here with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you everybody for being here. Wow, such a big group. So I'm really excited to have this entry in your group. It's my first time, so I'm really so pleased for that. They told me that I have to spend quite a while introducing myself. That's a little bit hard for me. I think that I like much more to talk about my topic, but I will say this. I was born in South Africa. I was trained in South Africa. I come from Cape Town, the lazy town, the town where everybody's on vacation all the time. And I married my husband there, and then we both moved over to the US in '93. And so I still haven't quite got the American accent down. So I'm still a little bit homey in my language. And so I basically started being interested in pediatrics really around about 1997. So I'm what they call a late bloomer. But ever since then, I've been training myself up in all kinds of directions, from sensory integration to DAR floor time to mental health, attachment, trauma. It's been quite a journey with multiple certifications. I carry certifications in ADHD. I carry different certifications for different modalities of use. I believe in an eclectic approach. I opened my practice in 2001. So we are now mature at 22 years old. We made it to 21. And then in 2019, I opened my own online academy. So what was happening is that since 2008, I've been traveling everywhere to train, and people wanted to hear about my methods that I'm using. And it just became too much. I had to travel at least 7 months of the year. And so one morning I was lying in my own bed in my home. And as I surfaced from a slumber, I asked myself, oh, what hotel is this? And so that's when I realized that, no, I can't keep traveling like this. And so I opened an online academy, and that's where I train. And so I think that's where your group got a hold of me, is to see what I have to offer on my academy. And then some of my I think my most popular courses are courses that's steeped in sensory integration. And of course, sensory integration is the basis of everything that I do. So in our center, we've developed 5 arms of work that I have different teams in my center. The one team is working ADHD executive functioning with sensory. The other team works sensory dyspraxia, which we'll talk more about tonight. The other team works with reading and writing disorders and sensory. Another team works with autism and sensory. And then the final team works with trauma and attachment and sensory. And so we're all cross-trained, and we've developed our own assessment and intervention protocol for each of those arms. And yeah, if I say anything more, it's going to become boring. So that's really who I am. So if there's any questions about what I do, you can ask me. That's all good. So when I was, I think, was it about 4 months ago that you guys contacted me, 5 months ago, and said that we need a course on dyspraxia. And we basically decided on a very new course that I'm actually currently running for the first time. And so I'm sending those recordings over to your group, that it's fresh off the bat, all the latest research is in there. And that's going to be part of why we're actually gathering together here tonight. So as we are entering into the information part of this workshop, oh, you must know this about me. I have a dog, and my dog's name is Simba. And Simba, sometimes when I train, he comes beside me and he comes to greet you too. Okay. And so he's a part of the family. And yes, without him, I definitely starve in my mommy heart. So yeah, that's, I think, enough about me. Let's turn our attention to dyspraxia. It's a very, very complicated piece. There is no real cookie cutter recipe for it. But there's also different lenses to look at dyspraxia. There is, of course, the sensory integration Jean Eyre's lens that we want to put on it. But there's also an emotional lens on it. There's also a mental health and wellness and well-being lens on it. And I'm hoping that as we travel this course together, that we will be able to kind of look at dyspraxia in one child in a holistic way, and define it, bring it home to you. What does it actually mean? What different pieces do we need to consider? What would it look like? And yes, this dyspraxia piece is a piece that underlies so many different difficulties today, from learning disorders all the way through to mental health disorders. So as we start off today, I want to show you maybe a video. And the video is of a small little client of ours. And what I want to show you is, I'll show you a little bit of him talking a bit, and then I'm going to mute the video. And I'm just going to focus on looking at the motor, because I want you to sort of see how many complications there are as we look at the motor skill. And then I'll go into my PowerPoint. How's that? Okay. I think putting a visual to it will help our discussion. All good? Cool. Okay. So let me just go here. Before I do that, I need to open it.
Stalls. If you want to
Oops,
put it in
oops,
the boat, you don't have to. Do you want to put balls in the boat? Yeah. Red and blue and red. And
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to show you this profile that has been graciously permitted to me by a parent. So if you happen to know this client, which I don't think you will, then please be quiet about it, because it's all confidential and private information, right? So let me show you just a little bit about his ability to kind of talk. And then we'll show you the difference between talking and doing. There's a hand up from Natalie. Do you guys want me to take questions now? No? Okay. Right, I will continue.
Balls. If you want to put it in the boat, you don't have to. Do you want to put balls in the boat? Yeah. Red and blue and red. And a blue.
So what I want you to notice is that this little kid is very verbal. Okay. So there are many different profiles in dyspraxia, many different ones. I'm showing you one of them just as a place to start. Okay. So what often happens is that the kid is highly verbal. And they look like they're developing according to the milestones in an okay kind of a way, right? Now I'm going to mute the video so that we don't, I wonder how I can mute it and then I'm going to stop and I'll talk, okay? So I'll do that. I want you to just watch the body movement. And what I want you to watch is kind of like how much of movement and complication of complexity is in the movement, okay? Okay, can everybody hear me? Right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, we can.
Good, because I'm gonna have to play with my buttons here. So what you see now, right, is that when he moves his body is moved around a central axis like this, like a log. It does not rotate across from upper and lower body. You'll also see the simple hand movements repeated all the time in the same way. And he will be able to open up and he will be able to close, but he will not be able to add to that complexity in different rotational movements. Those are the parts of dyspraxia in the motor system that is kind of the piece that we can look at. When we look at dyspraxia, oftentimes we get fooled by the child's higher verbal ability. And because they are highly verbal, we don't look at what the motor system is actually doing. And so what you'll also see in dyspraxia is that when they start talking, they stop doing. And when they start doing, they stop talking. That in syncness is not there. These are only a couple of examples that we need to talk about and that we need to figure out, because this adds to our observational complexity from what are we looking at. I've come to a place in my life where I can look at a video clip and I can almost tell you the child's dyspraxic profile, right? Because the body tells the story, the way the body moves. And the way that you look at video is always muted, because then you're not fooled by the verbal ability. Then you're looking at just what the motor is bringing to the table. Very important. So let's look a little bit again now. I'm going to mute. So the part that I want you to see now, and yes, you are seeing edited clips, okay, because otherwise we will be fast forwarding through video. But what I want you to see is that dyspraxic kids often go from one activity to another activity to another activity to another one. And then people will say, oh, he's just distracted. No. When kids do not have good praxis skill, they cannot figure out a next idea to do with an activity. So they're interested in something, they're visually attracted to it, they take a hold of it, and then once they've explored it, they let it go and they go for the next thing. And so this is actually how this complements something like attention deficit disorder, right? Because you're not able to spend experiential time on one activity for a long enough time. And that's how we will talk about how this actually then looks like categories. Like it can look like autism spectrum disorder. It can look like ADHD disorder. But at the bottom of it, there's a body that doesn't know how to move. There's a brain that's trying to tell the body how to move in a certain sequence, in a certain order, and it's just not happening. It's what another word that we can use in our terms is to say there's a poverty, a lack of complexity of movement. And that poverty leads to feelings of, I don't feel powerful enough. I don't feel like I can enact on my world. I would rather avoid a situation than put myself in a position where I feel uncomfortable. The child is intelligent enough. Dyspraxic kids are not smart, but they often end up having a reading disorder, having a math disorder, having a learning disorder, and people look at them as if they are not intelligent enough. But it's really the implications of praxis on things like working memory. Working memory is the kind of memory I need to take in new information that my teacher is giving me and then able to use that information. And so many people think that when a child is not showing clumsy, that they're not dyspraxic. They must show they're clumsy. No. That's not always true. Sometimes these kids can look completely okay if you basically just look at them at face value. But it's this little qualities in between that actually supports this whole dyspraxia piece. And that helps us to kind of look at it in a different way. So in this 8-session course, that's what I want to focus on, is giving you the intricate details of how dyspraxia complements through the visual system, through the auditory system, through the vestibular system, through the proprioceptive system, somatosensory. All of those pieces are involved. And so in these 8 sessions, we're going to bridge all of those pieces, including interoception, so that we can look at how all of these things complement. I'm just going to stop share now and bring up my PowerPoint. But it's a sensory motor neuron disorder. That's really what it is. And I can't wait for the day that people include this in diagnostic categories. Because right now, kids who are dyspraxic are put into other categories like ASD, like ADHD, like reading and written expression disorders, right? They could put there, but they don't get labeled for what actually is the problem. And therefore, we have to become more skilled. Dyspraxia is really all about. I did my introduction. I did the video. So what you may know as clumsy child syndrome, which is what people always thought dyspraxia would be, this is a child that you can see. He's not coordinated. He's not purposeful in his actions. He is slow to get started, to initiate things. He is slower to participate. He kind of checks everybody out and then he goes in, right? These kids often have poor handwriting, a poor pencil grip. They don't use utensils very well, like a knife and a fork and a spoon, a scissor, a paintbrush. They have a tough time going from destructive play into constructive play. In fact, their play can often be, I'm throwing something instead of building something, because to build something in a constructive way requires praxis, motor planning, and those pieces. So these kids are also quite frustrated. And many of these kids also get labeled as behavior problems because they have a need for sameness. They have a need for things always being one way, and it's their way because that's the only way they can remain in control. It's hard for kids with praxis issues to feel flexible and to think of a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, and to negotiate easily when something is coming at them. So those are the parts that you may know. All right. When I know I'm talking to a crowd that's heard these terms before, right? But what you may not so easily know is that a sports athlete can also have dyspraxia. I had a family from Canada that the kid was a snowboard expert. He was on his way to the Olympics. And the parent brought him to me from Canada because of the child's dyslexia. And then when we tested him and I said, your child has dyspraxia, he said to me, no way, Maud. There's no way. My child's a snowboard champ. How can he have a motor planning problem? And then I had to show him. And we had to show there's a finer part of dyspraxia that I also want to cover and give you and help you to figure out when this dyspraxia is at work. The classroom clown, with everybody laughs because they're so funny, they may have dyspraxia. The clowning around can be a mask for putting the attention to my humor so you don't pay attention to what I'm actually not doing. The perfect student, the one who gets honor roll for everything, who works 3 times harder to get the homework done because they're going to get honor roll and they're going to be perfect no matter what. That may be a mask for a hidden dyspraxia. Am I saying that everything is dyspraxia? No. But what I will give you is the pieces to look for when it is dyspraxia, so that your intervention can be targeted and can be focused exactly where you need to be. The quiet, anxious student may have dyspraxia. You know, in the last couple of years, my practice has changed to 1/3 of my clients are now adults, which is quite strange. You know, I'm definitely advertised as a pediatric practice. But what's happened is that the adults is giving me so much insight. And what the adults are saying to me, you know, I wish I knew these things when I was in school or younger ages, because I ended up going from one counselor to another counselor to another counselor, from one medical medicine to another mental health medicine. And I never really could figure out why I was feeling out of sync with myself. Right? And so when you have dyspraxia, you have the intelligence to know something is not right, but you don't have enough body know-how to know what it is. You're always fighting something that you don't know what it is. That's dyspraxia. So what the research does say is that 70% of kids with dyslexia have a corresponding dyspraxia. ADHD diagnosis includes a motor correspondence by the research now. Dyspraxia is also the building block that you use for working memory. Long-term memory, what did I do when I was 6 years old? Short-term memory, what did I have for dinner tonight, right? Working memory is not a memory that I need to store. It's a memory that I keep online, that as the teacher is giving me new information, like I'm perhaps doing now, you are listening to me and you're pulling up from your brain the information that you already have on dyspraxia. And now you're manipulating what I'm saying with what you already know. And the process that you're using to do that is called working memory. It relies on sequence. It relies on initiation. It relies on timing. And all of those pieces are intricately involved in praxis. So it becomes complicated. It becomes the way that the body can become effortful and the body can become purposeful. That's dyspraxia. So we know now that it's the ability of the brain to tell the body how to move and when to move. You are purposeful when you have praxis. When you don't have praxis, you feel like I'm not in control. I can't be in control. because there's no flexibility. I don't have a scaffold of support. And the other piece is praxis enacts on what we call the DLPFC pathway, which is the executive pathway in the brain, from the brainstem to the prefrontal cortex. That pathway is also your executive functioning pathway, and praxis is built along that pathway. So for those kids who can't organize themselves, who can't plan their homework, who forgets about dates, who can't pace themselves through a test, who gets anxiety because they don't know how far they must be in 30 minutes to get 10 questions done. They can't pace it, right? Those pieces are all related to that sense of praxis in different shapes or forms. Not all praxis is created equal. And the different parts need to be teased out. And therefore you have to choose wisely how and what you're going to be assessing. So when we think about dyspraxia just in regular terms, we think about that this is students who can understand what you're expecting of them with their cognitive brain, but they can't follow through. Very frustrating for parents to parent, because the parent thinks that the child is just not wanting to, because he knows the child got what the parent was saying. Why doesn't he do it? And why, when he knew this from last week, and he knew that he lost his iPad time, and he lost his video game time, why does he insist on doing the same thing this week, right? That inconsistencies has got a link to dyspraxia. It concerns all planes of movement. The rotational axis, the longitudinal axis, the vertical, the horizontal, all planes of movement is involved. All of the 8 senses is involved. And in fact, the whole course is about how the 8 senses is involved in dyspraxia. And it includes both modulation and discrimination. So modulation is part of the peripheral nervous system, whereas discrimination is much more part of the central nervous system. So when we think about modulation, we think about arousal level. So for instance, when we think about a car and you're driving the car and you're putting your foot down on the gas, that's your sympathetic arousal system. When you put your foot on the brake, that's your parasympathetic inhibition system, your stopping system. So the way you keep your car on the road at 60 kilometers per hour is by putting your foot on the gas and then the brake and then the brake and then the gas and the gas and the brake. And it's the balance between those two that keeps the car on the road, that keeps your car on the road as you plow through your working day, as the child plows through his school day. That's modulation. It has everything to do with how my arousal system looks. And yes, you have to think about sleep. You have to think about nutrition. You have to think about those pieces as part of the modulation system. Also supporting your immune system and all those endocrinological pieces that's involved with that. Discrimination is 12 brain. And how do these 12 cranial nerves interact with each other to create the most fruitful product? It's not an easy deal, is it? I was so excited when you guys were interested in dyspraxia, because I think there's a lot said about it in the literature, but there's actually not enough said. There's so much more that we can investigate and look at. Who can have dyspraxia? It's a developmental disorder. You're not born with a praxis ability. You're born with a central nervous system that the sensory systems and the way that the sensory systems takes information in and processes it is what allows you to put yourself in a position where you can practice praxis. And if my sensory systems aren't giving all the right informations and it's causing a little bit of a itchy glitchy, I don't know how you're going to translate that, but It's a professional term, by the way. Itchy, itchy, glitchy. But it causes these glitches in your system, okay? That causes you not to be able to be purposeful and use your systems. Whoops, there I go. I got the car in the garage, and now I'm going to paint the garage, and now I'm going to build a house on top of the garage, right? And I'm going to be constructive, and I'm going to be planful, and I'm going to be organized, and I'm going to have an idea, and I'm going to be creative about it, right? So that comes from practice. Praxis is practice, and practice is praxis. You need, they go together. There is a genetic component. They are finding genomes that causes all kinds of different developmental delays. But it still says that just because the genome is there, it doesn't mean that you're going to be having a developmental delay. It still says that there should be another expression from the environment on top of that genome that causes somebody to have a developmental delay. So I always use that when I talk to parents, because they often feel like, did I contribute to that? Was it me? Was it my side of the family? I'm like, we can't go there. There's no proof for that, right? So birth complications may also be impactful. I always trace the birth history of all my clients, looking if there's something there. They've now found in the research that the stress hormonal level in the baby is equal to the parent's stress level at birth. That's a pretty strong piece of information that they're now finding out. And it says a lot about how does attachment pieces and those kind of pieces, how does birth trauma impact on the ability and the want to need to move and to develop those pieces. Low muscle tone can often be, it doesn't have to be, some of our kids have got great muscle tone, okay? But low muscle tone can be an indicator that something could be there, especially when you have like the floppy baby syndrome, the babies that just sort of flop in the mommy's arms, right? And that may be a risk factor. Some of them show delays in motor and speech, but not everyone. So sometimes people say the person possibly can't have dyspraxia because they'd have no milestones delays and they have no speech delays. Not true. Not true. One of the forms of dyspraxia is called bilateral integration and sequencing dyspraxia. We go over that in one webinar just on this piece. And that one can be very hidden. And that one is usually not diagnosed until the child goes to school. Maybe if we're lucky by 5, because it's when they get to school and they have to become executive and use their systems in a purposeful way. That's when they usually start seeing that they're a little bit different than their peers. But most often, this profile, this BIS profile, gets to me in 3rd and 4th grade. You know, it's not picked up very early because usually these kids are smart and they can compensate by their cognitive skill. And then it shows up at those higher functions of academics and executive function pieces. And so the more that's expected of the kids in grade level, the more the disparity will grow between their actual potential and their performance ability. So it can be any culture, everyone. I train all across the globe, and everywhere I go, there are kids who are dyspraxic. Okay, it's not a specific culture, it's not a specific gender, and it's also not influenced with your socioeconomic status, right? So it's pervasive. So what do we need to know about dyspraxia? This is what we want to cover in the course. The different types of dyspraxia. You must know what it looks like and what it feeds into and how it's going to complicate the world, especially functional occupational performance. You must know the different terms and the definitions in order to adequately speak to it with other professionals that's working in the same team as you are with this child. For me, it's all about a team approach. I never feel like I'm the only one that can do something for a child. In fact, I say to my parents, if you have somebody that says, I can do it on my own, I think you should run away, because there's always another lens that's going to be helpful. It's a team approach, right? You need to know the influence of all 8 sensory systems to deal with dyspraxia. You need to know how each one of them compound on the issue. You need to know how this overlaps with other diagnostic categories, so that you're not treating ADHD, but you're treating the dyspraxia to support the attention, right? That you're not treating a reading disorder, but you're treating the dyspraxia so we can stop the reversals in reading and writing, right? And so making those connections is what we want to give you. You also need to know what to assess, and maybe some tools to assess. And that's a part that we'll cover later in the course. And then you also need to know, okay, where do I start my intervention? Too many therapists today do an evaluation with the tools that they have. Then they start the therapy once or twice a week. And they just say, let's see where we go, right? And then you may start at the right spot, or you might not. You might find out, 5 weeks later that, oh, I should have started over here. So what we want to give you is the tools to know that if you know where this dyspraxia is coming from, you can target your intervention quicker, and we can help to close the gap quicker rather than taking time that's maybe not so necessary. So I prepared one little video for you today that I want to show you. Oops. Let me see. Can one of you open that video? Looks like my sharing system is again working haywire with me. Let me just see here. Here we go. I got it. Hang on for me for a minute. Sometimes my system doesn't always give me the right response.
Let me know if you can. If you can't, I can open for you. If you send me the link, because
Yeah, I'm in YouTube right now, and I did copy the link. I don't know why it doesn't want to send it to me. Okay.
Let me check.
You have the link on my PowerPoint?
Where is the link?
It's in the PowerPoint. But I can just talk about it too. Let me just put that up on the screen here again. And then I'll tell you what it is that she's doing there. So I don't want to waste everybody's time, so we will do it that way. So basically, this one here, okay. So basically, this is kind of like, all of us know sensory, and some of you may work with it and some of you may not. The course is to kind of help the person that doesn't have it and also the person that does have it. It has enough depth and breadth in it. But this is one activity to show you a little bit of a complication that you can do, right? And so what you have here now is that she has a pendulum ball in front of her that is hanging from the suspended hook from the ceiling. She's now preparing to
Sorry, Maud. If you want, I have the video.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Swing the pendulum ball out in front of you.
It's okay?
When it comes back, hit it with your right hand. When it comes back again, hit it. And when it comes back again, sit it with both hands clasped together.
Maud, your with your microphone is open.
Okay, so just keep playing the video, no problem. So what you see is my therapist, this is my therapist here. So she's having her eyes on the ball, doing convergence and divergence with the eyes as the pendulum ball comes forward to and closer to her. She's also standing on a balance board that has got a grading system that you can make the board more wobbly to give more vestibular input. So you're basically working on visual and vestibular at the same time. At the same time she's doing that, we're asking her to do different sequences. So she's now doing sequences across midline and into the body, towards the body, out from the body. And you can work on rotational, you can do all kinds of pieces with it. And you can make the balance board more and more wobbly as she becomes more and more proficient to it. And if you really want to be fancy, you download a metronome app from an iPad, and then you put a timer on at a certain beats per minute, and then she has to clap and do her activities on the beat of that time. And so you're getting the movement pattern, you're getting the integration between visual vestibular, plus you're getting sequencing, plus you're getting timing. And that is one example of how one needs to integrate to work on the system. So maybe just stop sharing, that's fine. The reason I want to show you that at close in today's talk is because we can talk a lot about the complexity of praxis and dyspraxia. The intervention is just as complicated. Many people think that working on dyspraxia means that I have to create an obstacle course and have the child create an obstacle course of different sequences. Sequencing is one part of praxis, not the full deal. So the sequencing must happen in all planes of movement across the body, plus it must integrate different systems together, visual, auditory, vestibular. And then at the same time, you have to also bring it in sync with timing in your own body, which then once the timing is in sync with your own body, you can be in sync with others. That's the pieces that I would like for you to support you in this course to get. The course is not going to cover intervention in full detail. That's another course, right? But what it's going to cover is the theory behind everything in a way that you will know and can figure out your own pieces around it, so that when we have the integration webinars, after you've done the video recorded courses, you can ask these kind of questions. So Maud, what about this? And I'm going to invite you to ask any kind of clinical question. If I don't know, I'll tell you. I don't know everything. And I don't think I ever want to know everything, right? But that's why we have those live webinars afterwards, so that you can have those questions and is coming up from you while you're doing the recorded webinars. So that brings me to the end of my little introduction. And I hope I see all of you on the course, and that you will join us and feel like this is a worthwhile commitment. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Maud. That was amazing. I really enjoyed. Can't wait for the course. And I don't know, Manu, do you want to say something more?
Yes, we have already published the course. We have it advertised in our website, so I will send the link here through the chat, okay? If anyone is interested in getting information or something else, you can just go to our website and check it out. I will send it in the link in Spanish, in English, and in Portuguese for you to check it. Okay?
There, I did it. Okay.
That was quick. Really quick.
You want me to? Yeah. Okay. Well, awesome. If I don't know if there's any questions now from the group or no. I can't read the chat.
But the problem is that if we open the chat, if we open mics, this will be a never-ending story. There are lots of people from all over the world here. So let's just send the link of the course. If anyone wants to join us in the course, you're welcome. It will be amazing. It is recorded, but we will have Zoom sessions with Maud live. So if you have any doubts, she will clarify it for you. So it will be amazing. I have sent the link in Spanish. I will now send the link in English and Portuguese for you.
Okay. Well, then thank you, everyone. And I'll see you when I see
Really, thank you, Maud. It was a pleasure.
all good.
Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any friends who want to watch it, watch this short webinar, we will upload them in our website in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So you will have the possibility of watching it again.
And nothing more. Thank you, everyone.